And so it's sort of like the get out of jail free card for a lot of these people, and that's sort of how they play it. That's how they spin the metaphor internally. Rockney O'Bannon didn't work. He was doing comic books. He's the guy who created Farscape. He was making Farscape comic books when I found Farscape, and sort of, I'd say, washed up, but still following the war for the uncharted territories. The war for the uncharted is his comic book finale, which was mirroring my War of the Worldviews before I found Farscape. And whew, it's some dangerous territory, some of it. And I don't want to bring down judgment, when I don't have all the information, but at the same time, if I had taken up the offer to go and play John Crichton or to get involved with Farscape, if I had taken up that offer, would they have told me about Stargate? Would they have told me that they were competing with this other interest that was already punking me? I don't know if they would have told me. Would they have helped me, or would they have used me as a tool or a pawn, like they still seem to be doing? And so that's when I turned on my perception of Farscape. It's by their action, their maybe lack of reaction, or lack of proper reaction to the situation. These are people who know about the earthquake forecasting effort. They know about the depth and the importance of these discoveries, and they haven't been helping me. It's like, okay, can I trust these people? No, sorry, you can't. Not your friends. It's very difficult news, because they're huge, seemingly huge. They had, or possibly have, a lot of financial interest. And I don't want to get into the details about what Farscape is about, how it came about, why it exists. Like I said, it is what it is. I don't like the violence in it. I don't like the darkness. I can laugh at it. I'm capable of doing that. I don't recommend any of you watch it. It's too dark. You're not going to understand it unless you know the story from the perspective that they thought they were coming from. Which the real irony of Farscape is that there was maybe one, maybe two people who knew some of the deeper, more esoteric aspects of it. And this is where it, as a phenomenon, takes on a life of its own, because of the unconscious participation of these other influences, of these sort of demonic influences, which in the context of the story are completely interactive. And so I was sort of woken up to Farscape by what I would refer to as a higher order intelligence. And the Farscape series opens up with John Crichton and his childhood friend DK, who have come up with this way to defy the Earth's gravity using that gravity. So, a gravity manipulation device, which is what I was working on back in the early 90s. Now, they spun it, and that has at least 10 different dimensions of entendre that I have uncovered. And DK is an oblique reference to the author, the channeled author of the Alice Bailey work, which was not something I had been following. And while Farscape uses the Bailey tradition, Stargate uses the Egyptian, the Eye of Ra, Hathor, and my tradition is the Vedas. The tradition that I was drawn to is 9 of them. It's the Vedic. And so, in Alice Bailey's tradition, it's the solar angels. In the Egyptian tradition, it's Hathor, the cow that carries the sun on his head. And in the Vedas, it's the sacred cow, Indra, girt by Maruts. And that's the name of a book that I was given at the Tesla Symposium, Indra, girt by Maruts, by a man named Jerry Ziegler. I'm not even sure he's still alive, but he was very insistent that I have this book. And I showed him my inertial propulsion model. And, you know, I'm not saying that it's the shit. I don't know if it works. But considering what it stirred up inside the government, it makes me wonder what they really know. It seems like they exist by destroying their competition rather than by creating. And clearly they've created, you know, fighter jets, airplanes, you know, they did, you know, produce satellites and put this stuff up, you know. That's all very creative stuff. They haven't used any nuclear ICBMs, which is a positive thing, I guess, to their credit. But if you look at the terror that they've spread with this technology, with the threat of this technology, if you look at the amount of investment, the amount lost by the lies, it's definitely not worth it. It's definitely not something to be considered an authority. It's not something to be honored. It's not something to be obeyed. It's something to be reckoned with. So I view it. There's a reckoning that's coming. Possibly a rectification. And so, rather than referring to a Carrington event as the Carrington event, I've been referring to it as a great rectification. And rectification is a electrical term. What happens when you make alternating current into direct current? You rectify the current. You get it all moving in the same direction. And anyone who knows the story about the competition between Edison and Tesla, anyone who knows that story knows that it wasn't luck that enabled Tesla to defeat Edison. Alternating current has an advantage in that it can be sent distances because it is being alternated. It's not direct. And the system that Tesla developed was superior to Edison's system because the wires don't get hot. It's sort of almost this mysterious thing about the nature of alternating current. It's quite a hill. I'll show you when we get to the top. That the current does not make the wire hot. The current does not heat the wire. And direct current, if you tried to send 110 volts, even to your electric griddle, that wire would melt. It would be just like the coil in the grill. It would melt the insulation off the wire, and could even turn the wire into the filaments of a light bulb that would quickly oxidize, burn in the open atmosphere. And so this is the threat, the hidden threat that the electrical system faces from the sun. If that energy in the wire is rectified, if there's a current, a direct current induced, melt the whole grid. It will eventually melt the whole grid. Now, the people who have the more esoteric understanding of the sun know about this concept called the solar logos. And the solar logos is part of our living being, is a part of our living being. In a more accurate sense, we are part of its vast living being. We are part of the oneness it creates as an aspect of its image. And so there's this sort of intelligence factor that I tried to explore in No More Dumb Nuclear Scum. And that aspect, that song, the way that it's put together is as an embodiment of this voice. It's a message from, in a sense, the solar logos, intended as such, presented as such. You know, in the biblical sense, you know, God is not this Jesus character. Jesus was supposedly his son. Now, the one and only son, which is complete bullshit. And, you know, these brainwashed Christian Jesus followers who are out to crucify their fellow man in his name are a serious problem. I admit that's a big problem there, Thunderfoot. I don't think you're on the right track with your atheism. It's misguided. The sun is a living being. We are manifest of the sun. And there was an exodus from Genesis, which is, I don't know which Farscape episode that is. It's definitely the first season. Exodus from Genesis. There was a departure. The word day in the Bible is the word Selah, anagram of Tesla.